Hello, I'm Deborah Manger. I'm one of the Deputy Medical Directors in the Trust. I have been asked to provide a taster session in cooking or baking for the virtual Wellbeing event. Please forgive any gaffes that I have, including the filming, because my husband's doing that, so there's going to be plenty of those. And hopefully you will enjoy what I'm about to show you. I have decided that I'm going to show you how to bake white bread. And the reason for that is that I really enjoy making bread. I enjoy baking. I enjoy the fact that I know what's gone into the food that I've made. I enjoy the creativity and I enjoy the time and space that I have on my own when I'm doing it. But recently there's been an added dimension. So I haven't always been on my own when I've been doing it. We have been doing virtual baking and cooking as doctors and dentists in the Trust. At weekends, we've named it Saturday Kitchen. It's not as good as the things you see on the television. And we have done bread, scones, jam, curry. We've all got to know each other. We've got to have a laugh with each other. It has been fabulous. I hope that you enjoy this next few minutes. So, baking bread, I'm going to keep it very simple so that you've got simple ingredients and not too much equipment. So the equipment you will need a baking tray and you will need to have some greaseproof paper on it. You will need weighing scales. You can have any you like. There's this old-fashioned balance scale. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use an electric scale. But you do need a weighing scale, and you will need a bowl, and you need plain white bread flour, table salt, and fast action yeast. And if you have that, that's all you need for the bread. There's one other ingredient. It does not go into the bread. It helps you when you're kneading the bread, because what you don't want to do is alter the proportions of flour in the mixture. You want a nice soft dough, and if you start putting flour on your surface, you're going to alter the proportions. So I'm going to put a little bit of very plain, very bland vegetable oil onto the preparation surface, which I'll do in a moment. So I'm going to just put my bowl onto the scale. I'm not going to add anything to it at the moment. I'll tell you what's in there, and I'm just gently going to put drip a little bit of oil there. I'm going to wipe it over my surface. Like so, that's before I even start. And in the bowl, I have 10 grams of table salt. I have 500 grams of bread flour. It must be bread flour. The reason for that is that in order to make it stretchy and when it rises that it won't fall again, it has to have lots of gluten in it. And the more the better. So the stronger the wheat, the better. The one I've got at the moment has about 14 grams per 100 grams of protein in it. That's gluten, and that helps the bread rise and stay risen. So I've got 500 grams of flour, 10 grams of salt, 500 grams of flour, and then on top of the flour, I have got 7 grams of my fast action yeast. And I'm going to add to all of this, so 500 grams of flour, I'm going to add 350 grams of water. In order to get a nice soft dough, you need to have, the weight of the water needs to be about 70% of the weight of the flour. So let's just add that. I'm going to use my hands. I'm trying to keep this so that you're not needing lots and lots of tools. So nearly there. Does mean you get a bit messy. There we go, 350 grams. Just tap water. It doesn't have to be warm. It doesn't have to be cold. It just is been sat at room temperature. This is just, it could be a spoon, it could be anything, a spatula. Just going to start incorporating the water into the salt, flour and yeast. It couldn't be simpler, could it? You don't need anything in it, no preservatives, nothing added. If you want to add things once you get good at making bread, then there are lots of things you can add to this to jazz it up, make it a little fancier, but you don't need it. Right, so I've got the water and the flour are starting to incorporate. So I'm going to use my hands and I'm going to start mixing this, and the next time I show you this, it'll be a nice firm ball of dough ready for kneading. So it's taken me about 5 minutes to get the bowl so it's almost clean, and the dough so it's holding together. It's very soft, and I'm going to start kneading it on my oiled surface. And the thing to do is to pop it down, fold it over towards yourself, and then turn it. And you just pop it down, fold, turn. And you're doing it in quarter turns, and you're going to work like this for probably about 5 minutes. And at that point, you will have a dough that's much easier to handle. So fold and back towards you, stretch and fold. And I'll see you again in 5 minutes. So I've been kneading this for about 5 minutes, and I've forgotten the other well-being effect, and that is that this is actually quite good exercise. Apparently gets rid of bingo wings for those of you who've got them. And you want to end up with a dough that stopped being sticky. You can see I've got some stuff on my hands, but that's from previously. And actually, so you can see I'm now trying to fold this dough on itself. It's a little bit sticky there. Now, what I've got is a ball of dough that's quite smooth, and it shouldn't look like it's got cellulite for those of you who've got cellulite and you look at it daily. So it's a nice smooth dough, and what I am going to do, I'm just going to get a little bit of oil again, just pop it on the surface. And I'm going to just wipe the inside of my bowl with it. Don't worry about wiping it out, just do that. Pop your dough in, there we go. And then get a clean cloth, don't need anything special, just a clean tea towel. Pop that over the top. I'm going to show you the inside of the bowl. And we will meet again with time-lapse photography, if only, in about 2 hours, and we'll see a completely different thing, and we'll move on to the next stage. So, I've been leaving the dough to prove. That's what that stage is referred to as. And it has more than doubled in size. You're probably going to have to take my word for it. And it's nice and smooth, and I can see the air through it. This is where the extra flour comes in. So now you can have some extra flour. I'm going to sprinkle some on the side surface. I'm going to sprinkle some on my hands. Wish to put my sleeve up. Let's try and do that. I'm going to scoop this out. Now, you often hear that you should knock the air out of your dough. They'll say you should knock it back. You don't have to. You can be gentle. Actually, gentle is better. So I'm just bringing this away from the side, and that's the reason we used oil earlier, so that it would be easier to remove from the bowl. And I'm just slowly easing it out of the bowl onto the floured side surface. Slowly bringing it out. We're going to make a free-form loaf. So there's no tin involved. You don't need a tin. Just starting to fold the edges in. You don't want to squeeze. You want to just gently shake it. You can see I'm folding the edges under, just bringing it together, but I'm being as gentle as I possibly can. You can make all sorts of different shapes. You can split it and plait it. You can, I'll just get some bits. You can use seeds if you like. These are just mixed seeds. And you can use that on the side surface and it will stick to the surface of the loaf. You can actually knead that into the loaf if you want. I'm just going to keep it simple. I've decided I'm not going to have it round, so I'm going to make it slightly elongated. Again, keeping my hands floured, bringing the dough together. And so it'll look a bit like a bloomer loaf when we've done. But you could have it round if you wanted as well, and that would look like a cob. So I've shaped it into what will look like a bloomer shape. And I'm going to pop it onto the baking tray. You may or may not be able to see it in its entirety. And I'm just going to cover it with a towel. And you can leave that, have a look in about half an hour. It should have at least doubled in size. So you're probably thinking, gosh, this has taken 5 minutes to mix, 5 minutes to knead, 2 hours sitting in a bowl. You're not babysitting this, you're just not. In 2 hours, you can go for a walk, you can go for a bike ride, you can just sit and chat. You don't have to babysit this. At some point during a weekend, I'm around in the house and I will make that the day that I make bread, and I might make more than one loaf. So when I'm leaving it to settle, prove, rise again, I'm not babysitting this bread, I'm doing other things. You don't have to sit and watch it. So we're going to leave that now. I'm going to have another little look in about half an hour, and when I'm next on the camera, I will be showing you the loaf, and hopefully it will have more than doubled in size. Okay. Right, so the dough has now more than doubled in size. I got a bit distracted, so this has been proving for 3/4 of an hour. And if you want to be sure about how it will rise, you need to put a little vent hole in it. You need a very sharp knife. Just draw it through once, and that will, when you see those fancy patterns on the tops of loaves, that's to ensure that the rise is quite even. This is going to go in an oven on 210 degrees, fan, and you can either just put it straight into a dry oven, but I quite like to put a tray of water in the bottom as the oven is heating up. It creates a fantastic crust on the bread. It's really fabulous. It's going to go in there for 45 minutes, so I'll see you in 45 minutes. So your loaf has been in the oven for 45 minutes, and this is what it should look like. When you take it out, people say that you can knock on the base and it sounds hollow. I'm never really convinced, if I'm honest. I don't know what that means. I've never taken an undercooked one out, so I've got nothing to compare it to. But for 500 grams of flour, 45 minutes in your oven will do it. And you can see it's got a really golden crust. And there's some cracks in it. And that's because I used steam in my oven. And you're probably wondering, well, if it's just come out of the oven, how is she managing it? She's got asbestos hands. Well, actually, I've waited before filming this next section. So I've let it cool. And hopefully, you may not be able to hear it, but hopefully you can. That's a really good crust. And what we have is an even distribution of air in the bread. There's no massive holes anywhere. It's lovely, nice, aerated. There's no density. It's just nicely, evenly distributed. And my husband's asking me to show you a little closer. Here we go. So, anyway, it's all a bit arty for me. But this is fabulous. You will enjoy it. It's a great flavour. You will not go back once you've made it. And if you do, you will just be completely disappointed. And making it, it's a great way to spend your time, creating something that you really, really enjoy eating. And why not do it with friends like we've been doing on Zoom? Why not? Thank you for your time.